Hello everybody and welcome back to Marvel Rivals. In this one we're going to be going over Edgy Batman, aka Moon Knight. Moon Knight is a pretty cool attack hero who has the potential to do a lot of damage very quickly to grouped up targets. He's also got a ton of movement options, so let's just get right into him. Moon Knight's primary attack is called Crescent Dart. Unleash a crescent dart forward that can bounce between enemies and onks, dealing damage to enemies. For a basic attack, this is really strong, guys. Pressing the button, he throws 3 darts. Once they hit an enemy, they will bounce to any nearby enemies or onks and deal a decent amount of damage. Keep in mind that this will bounce to a bunch of enemies, not just 2 like I'm showing off here. So if an entire team is grouped up, you can absolutely start melting people. Moon Knight's alternate fire is called Moonblade. Launch forward a Moonblade that can bounce between enemies and onks, dealing damage to enemies. This is almost the exact same as his primary fire, except it is a gigantic Moonblade that deals a sizable amount of damage to the first person hit. You can see that the first Galactobot I hit, it did almost 90% of its health. About 70% of that was from the first hit. Keep in mind that you can chuck this in between his normal rates of fire to just keep things bouncing. Speaking of bouncing, his next ability is called Rising Leap. Perform a double jump. There's not a whole lot to say about this ability. You can jump and then jump again. It's pretty cool. Moon Knight's melee ability has a unique ability called Triple Eclipse. Perform a combo with his Truncheon, I think that's how you pronounce it, and the third strike will slightly launch up enemies. Like most melee abilities in this game, you can do it. Keep in mind though, you don't actually need to hit people with all 3 attacks, just the third one in order to launch someone up. Moon Knight's next ability is called Moonlight Hook. Launch a frontal grappling hook that pulls Moon Knight towards it. This ability is pretty self-explanatory. You look at a location, you press the button, and he pulls out a grappling hook and shoots to it. Once he reaches the location, you usually get a decent amount of height. Keep in mind that if you need to get height very quickly, you can always just look directly down and shoot it at your feet. You'll still gain the little height boost you'll get, and it allows you to actually get pretty high. Moon Knight's next ability is his dreaded Ancient Onk. Fire an Onk to knock enemies within its radius airborne and towards the center. This ability does a lot more than it says, because you actually have to look at his basic attack and Moonblade ability as well. These Onks count as enemies, technically, where you can hit them and your basic attack and Moonblade will bounce off of them to nearby enemies as well. Keep in mind that with every bounce, the attack does less damage, so it's probably worth to hit the enemy next to the Onk instead of the Onk next to the enemy, if that makes sense. I see a lot of people just use Moon Knight where they hide around a corner and just use his Onks to do all the damage. While technically you can do that, it doesn't mean you're doing the most damage. You can have 2 Onks up, and keep in mind that they have health. They can be destroyed by the enemy team. If you're on the enemy team, please, for the love of God, destroy these. The amount of times I was playing healer and just had to start face tanking a bunch of onks to the face because I couldn't take my eyes off of my teammates or else they would get instantly murdered because of all the damage the onks are doing. It's kind of insane. Also keep in mind, if you are against Moon Knight, the voice lines that some people hate so much in this game will call these out even if you don't see one. You will constantly hear someone go, "Is that an onk? Whoa, Moon Knight dropped this." So just make sure you're using your ears, using your eyes, and using your general game sense to know when an onk is on the field and how to target it properly. Time to drain. Moon Knight's next ability is called Night Glider. Enter a gliding state. This is another pretty self-explanatory ability. If you're in the air, you can push the button and he will start gliding. Note that you can't really do anything when you're gliding. If you try an attack or anything, it will take you out of the gliding state. Moon Knight's ultimate ability is called Hand of Khonshu. Open a portal that allows Khonshu to bombard enemies with his talons. There, ahead, I found them. This ability is pretty generic. You press the button and a circle will appear where the ultimate will be placed. You can cancel it or confirm it. Once confirming it, Moon Knight will open a portal to the heavens, allowing Khonshu to send a bunch of talons through. This deals a bunch of damage to people inside. This is pretty good for either closing off areas or just destroying people in a team fight. Also note that because of the nature of Moon Knight and his high damage capabilities, he can get his ultimate quite quickly if he played correctly. So I wouldn't recommend holding on to it long if you're a good Moon Knight player. Moon Knight has one team-up ability with Cloak and Dagger called Lunar Force. Cloak and Dagger can inject light and dark energy into Moon Knight to create a light and dark realm where Moon Knight can become invisible. Not gonna lie, this ability is pretty underwhelming in my opinion. How it works is once Cloak and Dagger and Moon Knight are on the same team, Moon Knight gets access to a new ability. Cloak and Dagger do not have to do anything for this to work. Pressing the ability, Moon Knight can summon an orb of light and darkness. While sitting in the orb, Moon Knight is invisible to the enemy team. This is a pretty cool ability until you realize how small the circle is and that you need to be standing in it in order to be invisible. Now granted, yes, you are fully invisible, but the enemies can see the orb and its radius, meaning if any of them have an AoE ability, they can just hit it with it and you'll probably get hit. When you do get hit, you do briefly show up, revealing yourself until you turn back invisible. In my opinion, this is kind of a weak ability because it's an invisibility, but everyone knows the general area you're in, so yeah. And that is everything you need to know about Moon Knight. What do you guys think of Moon Knight? Do you love him? Do you hate him? What do you think of that team-up ability? Do you think it's as weird as I do? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you learned anything or liked the video, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button as it does really help out the channel. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.